Okay, afternoon everybody. God of our fathers in whom we trust, by whose guidance and grace this nation was born.
E tia atua kahu rua, nā tua mātua pono, nā tua aroha, e whanu e mai e Aotearoa.
Bless these councils of Upper Hutt and give all things needed for their faithful discharge of their responsibilities.
Whakamainga mai tā, ko nā mai a Pakataki, ko mai ki mātou nā mere pai, kia arataki e tau mātou mahi, nā mahi ha hapari aki e tia hapari.
Give to each good health and good judgment for the decisions to be made, wisdom beyond our own, and a clear understanding so that we may promote thy glory and the welfare of all in the city.
Ko mai te tēnei nā mātou te ronga pai, me te whākua mawhai hoki. Kia whakatau e ronga, nā mata tuaki ia nā hu. Nia mea tanga, kia aki a korea oranga, o tia koratu oro tu whakataki.
Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Ko e hu, ko tia, tō ti raki. Amen.
Thank you. We now move to apologies. Item 1, we have no apologies for here, and item 2 is the declaration of interest. If there are any changes, would you please tell the governance myself? And then we move to item 3, which is the public forum, which we have one speaker tonight. We have Heather Blissett. Welcome. Welcome.
Right. Take a look at the version of the handwritten one. I just had a couple of things. I know you've got a lot to do today to adopt things, but the proposals for a new water board, our taxes paid for our central government, our rates will pay for 3 boards. They'll pay for local government, they'll pay for Wellington Regional Council, and they'll pay for a water board. That just seems like a lot of boards to be coming out of one ratepayer fund. I realise there's other income streams. I feared privatisation, especially in the past, but however, it has meant competitive pricing with regards to our communication and power. Organisations such as MSD will ensure no one is without essentials, so they are legally obligated to make sure everyone has the essentials of life. My other question is, what about Te Tile? The only reference is on page 8, number 36, where environmentally resilient is referenced. I'd like a bit more verification on what that actually means. For example, is that 10 new storage lakes? Is it a complete redesign of our infrastructure? Is it limits to water use? Only this morning, Dr. Mike Joy raised the concern that dilution of waste is still a problem. So the question remains, where is the way? Nothing ever leaves this planet. So apart from the ambiguous wording on page 8, I can only see financial sustainability. For example, on page 59, where it says all water service delivery model options will be subject to, I'd really like to put environmental in first. So then it goes on to say financial, and you've got a list of all the other things, but you've still missed the environmental out. And the other, so yeah, just quickly on the water, at the moment, I know you're all aware of it, but I just want to say it on behalf of community. At the moment, you're sort of being forced into signing a document that's like taking out a loan without knowing what the fee structure, the term and the percentage and interest rates are. So it's not an easy decision to make, but I just wonder if you've got clauses in there that mean it's subject to information that you don't yet know about. Lastly, I just want to say for the last few years, I've noticed that the sustainability title, the subtitle and all the agendas is missing information. It keeps saying there are no sustainability issues or things to report. So I just pulled out the document, and because I typed it up after I wrote it, I didn't handwrite this bit, but I was just going through it, and you've got a section in here on water. You've got, so one of your principles was Full integration across council. It is imperative that this strategy does not exist in silos. The sustainability goals and principles must be woven into all council policy. Plans, decisions, grants and papers. Every facet of council has a role to play in a united approach. I mean, the whole document can be, but there was one on water and I've already lost it, so it doesn't matter because I've got it written on the table document. But I just wanted to remind you that that one heading keeps being left blank. And I'd just like to see us adopt the sustainability strategy in our documents. That's me, sorry, I seem to be sniffling.
Any questions? For
No, thank you.
Okay. We now move to item 4, which is the adoption of the water done well water services delivery model. Consultation. Remember, I'll just remind councillors that we're adopting these to go out to consultation, and then we'll get making decisions once we get feedback from the community. And remind us that we're required by the Act to complete this consultation and have a water service delivery plan to the DIA by 3rd of September of this year. And the other area which is worth noting is that whilst we're out consulting with other councils, individual councils include content that may be specific to them, and that ours is the same with the financial impacts. Okay, are there any questions or comments? Any? Councillor Cast?
Yeah, to page 12 on para 74, which sets out the timetable. And we have a council meeting to confirm the water services delivery model by the 30th of June. And that is also mentioned on page 16 in the proposed annual community consultation pamphlet, which is attachment 1. Then by the 3rd of September, we're required to submit the water services delivery plan. Now, there is a difference between the delivery model, which we're considering for community consultation now, and the water services delivery plan. But there's no mention of having a council meeting to approve the water services delivery plan in para 74. Why isn't it? Why aren't we having a council meeting? And if not, why not?
At the moment, the collective group of officers around the 5 councils are just working through the planning for the next stages in the plans development, and that will include a council meeting to approve or adopt the draft plan before it is submitted. That's currently being worked on to be scheduled at a date to be confirmed in August, and we will add that once it's available.
I just
Councillor Cast?
can I have that noted in the meeting?
Yep, we can know that. Yep, we can know that. Good. Councillor, give me a smile.
Thank you, Your Worship. So with everything that's happened in the last fortnight around water and that front with water and some muting from Wellington City Council, I believe that they're actually going out with one of the options to the community that they actually go on their own. Now, our community, when we go out and consult, I'm sure that they're going to be asking us as elected people, what would that effect have on us? Should that be the preferred option that the people of Wellington City say that they want to do? That's my first question.
Through you, Your Worship, para 91 of the report on page 14 agrees with the width of any change to the current proposal, which is on the basis of the 5 councils proceeding with the preferred model of a joint organisation. The current financial modelling is all done on that basis, so there is that risk that if that were to change, then there would have to be some reworking of that. And some consideration for what
Ms. Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for that answer. So our next concern would be that we could give that answer to our community, but that won't kind of satisfy them. Will there be an opportunity then for us to reconsult, because that would change the whole landscape of the financials that are in this paper? So would we then consult with our community that the landscape has changed, that Wellington are going on their own and we, or will it mean that we as elected members around the table will take the delegated authority that we will make that decision on behalf of our community?
Through you, Worship. There has not been detailed planning around that scenario in terms of what the process is involved. But if it substantially changes what is currently being consulted on as the basis for development of the water plan, then that may trigger reconsultation. And that would certainly impact on the timeframe, the current legislated timeframe to submit the plan by 1st September. The only other thing I'd note is that in the legislation there is provision for the Minister of Local Government to grant an extension to that 3rd of September timeframe, under exceptional circumstances or in case of unforeseen complexity or the like. So I guess the key first step would be if that scenario were to unfold, the remaining councils would work through that, including seeking advice from Department of Internal Affairs on the process.
And just one other. So
Then Councillor Kerry.
yeah, and I apologise. So the biggest impact on us is going to be the financials, right? Because we've got the projection in this consultation document that gives our community faith that we would go to option 1, and it gives us a clear trajectory of what that might look like. My fear is that the impact on our financials, should Wellington go on their own, would be a lot more scarier for our community. So it's good to know that we will then go out and consult with our community, should that be the option. I think, being from a fair and transparent perspective, I think that's what needs to happen. Thank you.
Councillor Kerry.
Thanks, Your Worship. It's sort of bouncing off what the Deputy Mayor said. The question through you is, does the legislation, when this has to be financially viable or financially stable, does that direct at a local level? Is that local as in the districts here that are going to make this up, or as a regional sort of context? Can they actually go alone, or do we all have to be financially stable in the region?
Through you, Worship. The legislation, the requirement for financial sustainability applies to any given delivery model. So there'll be councils around the country who are doing individual organisations, there'll be ones doing 1s or 2s, there'll be some doing in-house service delivery still. So that financial sustainability requirement applies regardless of what the model is. I guess how that is being assessed by the Department of Internal Affairs through the plan approval and review process, I don't have full detail of that. And I'm not sure if my colleague, the GM of Corporate Services has, but I guess that is part of the process, that the plans are all going to the Department for Internal Affairs for that review and approval step. Does that help?
But the work that was done in the early part, with the individual councils around us, including us, showed that this wasn't sustainable for them to go alone.
So I guess my concern is the fact that one council could force the others into a financial
Absolutely
unstable position, and where's the protection around that in the
Councillor Newell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering if the officers might want to have a reconsideration of paragraph 80. There are no sustainability considerations at this time. And bear in mind that sustainability is one of those very loose words which may, if I just perhaps think of it from Heather Blissett's point of view, sustainability might be around the environment, but what our staff are talking to us about is sustainability as in financial. So I wonder if at some future point we might want to reconsider what we actually mean there. and just flash that out.
What now?
Oh, no,
No, okay.
no, not this minute, no.
Councillor Carson.
Some consideration, I think, is needed in worship.
Just a response to councillor Gerald's point about that, the water quality control body actually does take into consideration, and we saw that briefing we had a couple of weeks ago, that the sustainability and environmental concerns was part of their brief, as well as economic affordability, etc. So I think that's where it gets captured. But just going back to the Wellington Council, say opting out of the prior council water service delivery model, I'm very concerned that we don't know what the impact, financial impact is on this council and the other three councils. And surely we must have some idea from the information that we've got together, because each individual council put all the information together and to get the current service delivery model. So we must have some idea of what the impact is going to be, and I'm not very happy about going out for public consultation unless we had some idea about that.
Councillor Deputy.
So I'm going to move on from that, and I totally support my other two colleagues that have raised those issues. But I've got a couple of questions. So we've got our asset, we've been given a report of the state of our assets, am I correct? Of our water assets, we know what they are. We received that from Wellington Water. The reason why I'm asking, do we have that? When we go out to look at efficiencies and affordability and the money that needs to be invested, and my concern is about, so the new entity can look at sustaining a pipeline for the community to deliver the three waters, but at the end of the day, it may not be affordable, their investment. But if we can ring fence what the state of our assets are to ensure that it's affordable for our community, is that something that we're able to do in the letter of expectation or the statement of intent? Because I think it's really important that we know the condition of our pipes when we hand over to the new entity, right? Because that will affect the affordability of the investment that our council would be asked to invest. And it's around, because it says about sustainability of delivering a service, but it's always done it from the other perspective. And even though the Commerce Commission has got involved, I don't believe they're strong enough to actually advocate for our community when it comes to this price that is struck for all our water services. So, sorry, Jeff.
Through you, Your Worship. That's quite a complex question.
It is, I'm sorry.
I'll give it my best shot. The reality is that, yes, Upper Hutt does know probably more about its pipe networks than other councils in the region. And it knows probably it has better condition data than most other councils in the region. However, the total cost of water supply and wastewater treatment involves assets that are outside our area of technical expertise or knowledge. And that includes high-cost items such as the Seaview wastewater treatment plant, the outfall pipe at Seaview, and also the water treatment facility at Timarua. Those are things that are theoretically part of the wastewater treatment plant sits in our books because we contribute 30% of the cost of operating that. But we do not have the same level of asset knowledge about those things as we do about the pipes in the ground in Upper Hutt. So going forward, we could, arguably, because we know what the condition of our pipe networks are, yes, we could theoretically set up an entity that managed those on behalf of the Upper Hutt community. But that is only part of the provision of those services. And we would then be compelled to basically take the costs from others for the provision of water and the treatment of and disposal of waste, over which we would have virtually no control or influence. So the logic for us being part of the collective that provides those two-end services is that at least theoretically we have some say, some influence. If we were to go the other way, we would probably have no influence other than annually receiving an invoice which we would have to pay.
That's subsequent, and thank you, Jeff, for answering that. So in the whole matrix of things, if everything goes well and we are 5 entities that go into this new entity, I'm assuming there is going to be a proportionality in how you pay for your bill. Like, as you mentioned, you know, we pay a third of what happens at Seaview. Are some of those constraints going to be applied in this new entity, or is it that we're all in this together and we have one vote around the table because that's how democracy works?
We won't have any vote.
Okay, good to know. You don't get a vote.
Well, the board will be one.
No, but we have an oversight over that board, don't we? And the structure that they put there. So I just wanted to know, is any of those nuances out there that we can communicate to our people that whatever option they have, we do have some control?
Well, I think in the early, and they correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is in the first couple of years,
Yeah.
there's some local ring fencing. And after that, then effectively you're in the pool and that board will decide where money should be invested. But in the early years, I'm pretty sure that there's a ring fence, is that correct?
Your worship, yes, that is the intention at this stage.
Yeah. That could change.
But yes, it could change. So at the moment, the focus is on the model.
Yeah.
And the next stage, which is the service delivery plan,
Yeah.
gets into the details of how that model would work. So the questions you're asking, we're hopeful that the answers that you're seeking will be available when you need to make a decision on the services delivery plan. In terms of cost structure, for example, from day zero, the new company will not have an ability to be able to obtain funds from individuals or communities. And so there would be a heavy reliance in those early stages upon the current funding mechanisms, which are through council. Even, you know, the panacea of putting in water meters for charging, you know, that's a $250 million proposition and requires a billing system to go with it. That will not happen on day one. That could be anything up to 3 to 5 years before that as an alternative revenue stream can be put in place. So there will be a transition period where councils will be involved, initially funding in the way they do, but then moving and transitioning more towards direct funding by the board itself.
Going back to actually Councillor Carton, my understanding would be that if Wellington decide to go alone, then all bets are off. That would be a whole new, I mean, there will be, I suspect, government involvement, but the whole process would be, you know, start again. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Worship. Question through you to the city or staff. Porirua, Hutt City Council and Wellington City Council have all discussed the idea of a consumer charter, and the idea in principle has been supported unanimously by those councils. And yet our report makes no mention of it, and I've not seen any of it being discussed at the AOG. And it's been briefly mentioned at the Wellington Water Committee. Why has it not been discussed in more detail, and why has it not been brought to our council for any consideration?
Through you, Your Worship, based on my knowledge, those discussions have been happening at AOG. That was my understanding. So if that's not the case, then that's different to what I understood. I believe the approach to a customer charter is an approach of the collective of all 5 councils. I'm not aware of any particular reason that it hadn't been flagged prominently for our council. But that would be an approach. My understanding is Oxford level that that's part of the joint working through the next stages. I don't know, should executive know any different?
I wasn't even aware that they had adopted them.
Well, I just think if those discussions being held and there are genuine concerns from those in the community about affordability and their interest in this huge entity going forward and the clear disregard for public funds we've seen over the last fortnight, I think it would actually be a good step to take to help build public trust in this reform going forward, to actually say, this is actually about the users and our water. You know, it's not about everyone kind of consulting and getting in on the gravy train. This is actually a meaningful reform that is to solve problems. And a big one is affordability and sustainability, both for the entity and for our ratepayers. So I just think it's been a bit of an oversight that I'm not sure if people don't want it high up in certain places, but I just feel like this has not got enough traction, and it would actually provide a bit of comfort to some of those people who see this reform to just see another big rates bill. So I just think we're missing a trick.
Through you, Worship, the charter has been discussed by other councils, but at this point, no one has formally adopted it. And there are a number of reasons for that. For example, at the moment, until the water service delivery plan is locked in, the actual financial impost on individuals is, well, we think we know what it is, but that needs to be refined further. And of course, events in the last couple of weeks would question perhaps some of those assumptions that have been built into some of that preliminary modelling. So the cost structures may not be what we understand them to be. But my understanding was that there was also some expectation that the Commerce Commission would, in a sense, provide some of those checks and balances that you would expect a community charter to create. But I do take on board your point that perhaps that community charter needs to go wider than just purely financial things. There are quite a number of other aspects that it could cover off. But look, it's a work in progress, and certainly the fact that we haven't referenced it in here is not deliberate. It's just that it seemed to be at a very early stage of its evolution.
If I can just make one more point, Worship. Thank you, CE. It's just, when we set these things up, it's so crucial to get it right from the get-go, because once you're in, as we've seen with Wellington Water, you're in without any kind of recourse if you've got no votes around the table. And so getting these protections right before we set this thing up is going to be so crucial. And that's why I'll be watching this next stage very closely. Another issue I do have concern with is the fact that Wellington's going out with 3 options, but yet we can only go out with 2, or we are only going out with 2. And I've said this before, that I don't believe going it alone is viable, but I don't think our community are aware of those reasons, and we haven't brought them up to speed well enough. I think going out there and saying why it's not viable actually makes a stronger case for why the regional model works even better. But I think we're just leaving that information kind of, oh, we've considered it, not happening, don't worry, don't ask the reasons why. And that just leaves that big kind of void of people saying, well, why the hell should we go to a regional model? They can't manage our funds in Wellington. Well, that hasn't worked for us in the past, yet this has been praised as the way forward. So I just think we're leaving a huge kind of, we're leaving ourselves open to this whole thing collapsing by not kind of answering those questions before they're asked. So I do have concerns of that being left out, and it does give me hesitation to support this.
Through you, Your Worship, just to note on page 24 of the agenda, the consultation document, there is a specific box on the page that addresses that question and highlighted to keep in mind the rationale why it isn't an option in the document around this council going it alone. That is how we need it to address that with the community as best we can.
Okay, you through the comments, we do have recommendations there. Councillor Ultra.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm just wondering if, following public forum where environmental was asked to be added back in on point 59 of page 10, could we include environmental where it says all water service delivery model options will be subject to the financial, and should be environmental included in there as well?
That the content as stated specifically refers to the local water done well framework and policy. So we have used the language and parameters within that government policy, which is why it's stated as it is. That is what's covered in that context.
So then on page 13, where under sustainability, and it says there is no sustainability considerations, there actually are, and it is water itself. So if we could add our sustainability strategy on water into that box, it would be really good.
Okay. Any further comments?
Through you, Your Worship, apologies, I don't know.
Yeah.
The discussions flag that there has been a table document with 3 minor changes that I recommended to be incorporated in the adopted version, and it includes 3 items of content to clarify aspects around the debt provisions and debt limit, and the 2 of them, and the 3rd one is just a slight amendment to how a graph is presented to aid in the reader's understanding in relation to the rates review packages, to note those for inclusion, please.
Now, no further comments. We have motion recommendations there, A through D. We can if we want to. You want to take them separately?
And also I'd like to make another amendment to them.
So we start with 4A. Have been moved. We have a seconder.
All right. I'll see you
Seconded. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no. Been carried. We then move to B. Happy to move. Seconded by Councillor Holdness. All those in favour say aye. No. Item C. Moved by Councillor Newell. Seconded by Councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye. Contrary no. It's been carried. D. Happy to move. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hammond. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no. It's been carried. And E. Happy to move. Second of Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no. It's been carried. Section F.
I'd like to move a motion to insert after E.
An amendment. After what?
After E, we've just voted on E, and insert this following additional motion. Because I think it's in the right sequence to do so, and the motion reads, notes that should the 5 council water service, should note that the 5 councils water services delivery model substantially change, then the viability of the model may come into question, which references back to the quite heightened risk that we have.
Yeah. Comfortable with that? Comfortable with that? Moved by Councillor Carson. Did you get that? No. Can you just repeat it?
I'll read it again.
Yep.
Notes that should the 5 councils, occupiers, water services delivery model substantially change, comma, then the viability of the model may come into question.
You got that? Comfortable, moved, seconded by councillor Carson, moved by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No, it's been carried. Sorry, we've got two against. Yep. Councillor Ultra, councillor Bentley. We now move to F. Happy to move. We have a seconder. Councillor Newell, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. And we go to G. Happy to move, seconded by councillor Holderness. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, been carried. Thank you. We now move to page 40, where we approve to consult on the revenue and financing policy. And we have, there's a paper there, you've got a table that's just got a couple of updates. And I'll come back to you in a minute, Emily. And passport gaming machine venues policy and the alcohol fee setting, knowing that from the revenue and financing councils, we have to renew the policy every 6 years. And the gaming policy, we need to review, particularly in the number of passport. And the alcohol fees setting bylaw is looking at, currently it's a 50 or 60% cost recovery, and we're looking to go out to 80%. So you have those there. Any comments? You would like to make any comments to start?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to outline the correction we have tabled, which is a separate document. It relates specifically to the revenue and financing policy and the statement proposal for that, which includes a table twice, once as part of the proposal and once as part of the meeting policy. So the initial table in the statement proposal is on pages 49 and 50 of the agenda, and then the table is repeated on page 67. The same error appears in the table each time. So there's some blue text where the information in the table was missing, and some red text, which is the actual change to that table that has been proposed, where the numbers had tracking had gone awry, entirely my fault, and didn't add up to 100. So it's been corrected, so each of them appropriately reaches 100. My apologies for that red error. The other one was about missing. So I just wanted to draw you to.
Thank you. Now, councillor Bentley.
Worship. Us moving to a range rather than a specific thing is a modern change, which is good. But for the alcohol licensing, this change from sets the ban for general rate to 10 to 20% and betting charges from 60 to 90%. I can't see any other ones where the ban is so wide. Is there no limit on how wide you can put it in? And why is ours so wide for those ones specifically?
Your Worship, the ban in this case is to allow the change for the alcohol fees to occur or not occur, dependent on that consultation that is yet to be completed. So that's why it's perhaps wider than usual. As far as I'm aware, and I've looked to my here, there's no limitation on how that can be completed for allowance.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any further comments? So we do have the recommendations there. You see them. We received 1A through to E4.
Okay.
I'll move, seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. Been carried. Now go to item 6, reminding the adoption of the dog registration fees, reminding that we have to go out. We need to fix those by council resolution, and we need to do that no later than the 1st of June. So it's important that we work through that. And any questions or discussion? We have a mover. The recommendations there is that we adopt the dog registration charges and adopt the dog fees AV. Moved by councillor Bentley, seconded by councillor Ultra. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. And we now move to item 7, which is the adoption of the draft schedule of fees and charges, which we've spent a lot of time working through on for 2025-2026. And remember that the proposed changes for this are largely as a result of adjusting costs, recovery rates. Councillor Bentley.
Oh, question, just want to highlight paragraph 53, which I think is one of our more meaningful, less kind of financially, even though it might not be financially significant, it is one of the more meaningful changes we've made to remove the interment costs for children that pass away under 1 year or die stillborn. I think just for those families who suffer such a great loss, to make it just a little bit easier in those times is something I think we should be quite proud of. So good work, everyone.
Any further comments? Councillor Wheeler.
Just a small correction, you tell me on page 186.
Okay.
Page 186, just on H2O, on 123, you mentioned about adults over 65, but down the bottom it mentions about a cafeteria. Is that in case there is a cafeteria going to be in there, or is it copy and paste?
Well, there's no cafeteria. No, it's no. Yeah. Well,
That's could be, maybe.
maybe, because at the moment there's none. There won't be one.
It looks
Yeah.
like there'll never be one.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, any further comments or questions? Oh, sorry.
I know just through your worship, and just to note that that is a historic reference, obviously, but it is future proof if there in the future there is cafeteria.
so it could be. Yeah, okay.
So we adopt the recommendations there, that we receive the report titled Adoption of the Draft Schedule of Fees and Charges 2025-26. Have a mover? Councillor Holderness, seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. Thanks, team. And we now move to the adoption of the annual plan 2025-26. Remember, we have been giving guidance over the last 4 or 5 months to staff about where we're heading and what we're doing. And we're adopting the consultation document that begins tomorrow. And we are doing that, making sure that we keep to the timeframes of Local Government Act 2002. Any comments? Any questions? Councillor Bentley? Oh, sorry, I just wanted to start Councillor Bentley and then. Yep.
Wanted to again, through you, your worship, just identify the corrections that we
Yep.
tabled
Thank you.
around two areas. One being the title of the ring bracket, on page 280 of the agenda, to include the words for 2025, 2026 at the end of that title. So it's clear that graph is for 1 year. And then the second on page 285 to add some additional words in the curbside recycling item in the consultation document. Those words are changing from the waste levy in brackets the number to $525,000. Those brackets with no rates funding required, to replace those words with council's waste levy income of in brackets to $525,000. There will be future rate funding required for asset renewals. So it's just a replacement of one thing with another. And then just an amendment to the third bullet point. That was the second bullet point. Third bullet point is just to add the words operating expenditure for prior to curbside recycling. Just points of clarification.
Yeah. So I've got a question on curbside recycling, and it's under option 1. There's a couple of things that I'd like to do. I think what we need to do is we need to bold capital costs as CapEx so that people understand that it's actually, you know, CapEx that we're talking about, that we've got funding for. I'd like to, on the third bullet point, highlight, because we were talking about what we're going to bold and what we're not, if we bold that the third is around OpEx, and if we can make that quite clear. The other thing is, I'd like to ask a question about the very first paragraph on that. This would replace the current recycling station, which would be closed. I didn't think that that was part of option one. Please clarify that for me.
Through your worship. So the option one is the LPP option brought forward and put into the document, and yet did not include funding for the continued operation of the recycle centre. That is phased out this next financial year.
Thank you. Councillor Bentley?
Thank you, Worship. Step to page 280 of the agenda, which is the first page that we discussed before. Total operating, the ring, the bar ring chart, not really, my chart. Can we put dollars in there, a dollar sign in there? Or is it percentage? I'm not quite sure. I assume it's dollars. I don't know. My question though is around the graph on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, and the one on the previous page. I think we've done a good job of explaining how we got from 19.94% to 15.76%, but I don't think we've done a good job of explaining why we were at 19.94 in the first place. And I think that's what a lot of people are going to struggle with. Yes, we can point to last year's LTP consultation, but I don't think we should be giving that too much praise. So I just wonder, is there anything else we can put in there to kind of explain to people why it's 19.94, and then we can explain, as we have, that we've got down to 15.76. I still think, is there a way of explaining that initial increase? Because we've done a good job of explaining the decrease of the increase, but we haven't done a good job of explaining the increase in the first place. And I'd also, while I'm up on 280, the table, I think that just needs to be presented in a slightly friendlier way for people who don't read these documents every week like we do. You know, I think it just needs to be a little bit more plain English. And that first part about the active mode transport program, that's got nothing to do with 25-26 because it boxes in blank, I assume. But I don't know why it's in there. And when we say how it's funded with loans, can we put that part of the increase is actually repaying those loans? Because just if you read it that way, you think, well, that shouldn't be part of the increase. It's been chucked on the credit card anyway. So I think just making this language a little bit friendlier will get us a long way with getting people to actually understand this document. Thank you.
You're talking about that document you're on page 280, that graph. See, and I, Jeff, were talking about this morning. You look at that, and you look at add it up, 64% of that's all on water issues, so it doesn't leave too much space to do much else. Deputy Mayor Smart?
Sorry, would like to get a response.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Through you, your worship. So there are a number of points raised there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer all of them myself. I have to draw upon my colleagues. Certainly, in terms of the donut graph, yep, totally agree. Having percentages in there is useful. We read your mind. We've actually, for the suggested final iteration, we've added that in. In terms of the waterfall graph, we've struggled with how we could actually, within the space we've got available, to break that down. And the number of words that would be required to tell the narrative around how that's formed is quite difficult. So just within the constraints that we've got within the document, so we have considered that as well, and have sort of erred on the side of just going from the basis of 19.94% is what was referenced in the LTP, and thinking of those people who want to understand how that is built up can always refer to the long-term plan itself. Well, yeah, I mean, through your worship, I totally appreciate the sentiment of where you're coming from. It's just we Otherwise, this becomes, like it's already a quite a lengthy document, including the local water done well consultation section, so it becomes quite a lengthy document. In terms of the point raised around active mode transport program, yes, that is a good point. I need to go and talk to my colleague around that. It might just be something, a remnant program that we'll just need to remove. We've got that under the recommendation for officers to fine tune on minor points. Have I picked up on everything?
Just about loan repayments affecting the increase of the 25-26, because it's just about, it's funded via loans, but yeah, we need to repay those loans, and that's why we've got a large increase. I know why we have the increase, but some people on the street might not understand it. Like if we're putting on the debt, what does that matter in terms of your measurements?
I just want to go back to that pie chart on 280. You've got a 0.41.
Just through your worship, it's for economic development, and we have already taken note that the version that's actually in your agenda is showing as a transparent colour, so it hasn't, for some reason that the colour didn't come through. So again, just with the recommendation for officers to fine tune, we have actually already asked the team to change that.
Okay, thank you. I have other questions, if that's all right. So I'm going to go to page 281. Are we, with the general rate, are we using the QV of 2022 or the new ones that are out that some people have already got notice that their QV has changed?
Through you, your worship, we are using 2022 QV figures, but we haven't revalued the city yet. Ours starts at later in the year, so it's still the current capital values.
The only people that have new rates assigned will be the new people, but everyone else is operating on until the review.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, so new subdivision properties, they will get newer values from QB as they are added into our rating database, but 95% of the rating database will have the 2022 QBs.
So are you telling me that when the rest of us get our QVs, they're not going to go down like they did in Wellington?
We don't know that.
Through you, your
They will.
yeah, through your workshop, we haven't gone through our city revaluation yet.
Okay, I have, sorry, a couple more. So when I go to the residential rates under general rates, so it's good to know that it's 2022. I would like to see, so the amount that we've got there, and I'm just going on the 550K of $1,063, it would be really helpful if we had in brackets beside it what it would have been if we had stayed with the 19.94, so that they can see actually this is what it would have been if we hadn't, and it kind of reflects what my colleague said about the 19.94 of what it would have been and what it is now, which is the 15. The other thing that I would like to point out on this graph, we've got 3 targeted rates, but I think somewhere on that page we need to make a reference, because a number of people have already come to me and said, how is those rates apportioned across the QV values? And whilst we know that you need to go to the finance policy, they don't, because there's an assumption that they would know that, but they don't. We've gone to a lot of trouble of putting in the finance policy all of those changes to make it open and transparent. But if they don't know to go there to look, then we've missed that connection. So I would like somewhere on there that talks about these 3 targeted rates to refer them. I'm not asking you to do big things, just to refer that if they want to know how we got those, that it's in that policy and that they can have a look at it. The other one that I wanted to ask, sorry, while I'm on, no, that's enough at the moment, thanks.
Through you, your worship, just in terms of answering the first question, I might turn to my colleague to answer the second question. I mean, to be brutally honest, there's a real risk of doing that that will create confusion, and the difference between 15.78 and 19.94 right next to each other arguably would be quite confusing on a document of this scale. In addition, just to be honest, the team, it's not just pushing a button to do that. it's recalculating all of the rates databases twice. And yeah, I just would question the additional value that would come from that, if not creating confusion with it.
Councillor Healy.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I just wanted to provide clarity on how the revaluation will work next year, because there will be a revaluation this year as at 1 July 22, but that will not be effective until 1 July 23. So it doesn't change during the year. It'll be next year's rates bills will be based on the new values done this year.
July, yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments? We have recommendations there. A through to F. Right, sorry. So we received this report, adoption of the annual plan, 2025-26. And any other changes can be tabled. I'm happy to move. You'll have a second that. Councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no.
No.
So carried. We now close the meeting. Thank you.